Learning Ally is a proud sponsor of the Empowered Dyslexia podcast. Learning Ally, a nonprofit education organization, helps to transform the lives of struggling learners by delivering proven solutions that help students reach their potential. We have a heritage of supporting students with a reading deficit like dyslexia. Our award-winning human-read audiobook solution helps students in grades 3 through 12 access books they want and need to read to help them succeed. Visit www.learningally.org for more information.
The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional legal advice, medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your attorney, advocate, physician, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding any medical or educational concerns.
Hello and welcome to Empower Dyslexia. I'm your host, Stephen Yearout, and we're here to help you become a better informed partner in education. On this show, we discuss dyslexia and other related disorders. We discuss research, interventions, special education policy at the local, state, and federal level, and we also interview experts in their field. And the most important part, the part that I love to do the most, is we talk to those of you who have personal stories about living and dealing with learning disabilities. Be sure to like us on Facebook and YouTube. Subscribe, leave us a comment. We love to know how we're doing and what information you need for our new shows. If you're watching us, obviously you're watching us on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and then we are on every platform that you could possibly get your podcast from. Make sure that you subscribe, leave us a comment. So today we're going to start talking about assistive technology, what it is, and how does it help a student with learning disabilities. I know that, we tend to try to get as much help as possible, and assistive technologies is definitely one of them. However, a lot of us don't really understand exactly what that term means. So I'm going to read a quick definition. Assistive technology is any item, piece of equipment, software program, or product system that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capability of a person with disabilities. So it can be low tech, something like a communication board, cardboard, fuzzy felt, something like that. High tech, special purpose computer. It can be a piece of hardware, prosthetic, mounting system, positioning device. It can be computer hardware, special switches, keyboards, pointing device, computer software, screen readers, communication programs. It can be inclusive or specialized, like learning material or curriculum aids. It can be so much more than what we think of assistive technology. A lot of times when we say that word, we think of some type of software or computer. A lot of people don't realize that a wheelchair, a walker, braces, my glasses, all assistive technology. So we have a special guest with us today. She is the executive director for Decoding Dyslexia Minnesota. She's an advocate for students with learning disabilities. In the past 7 years, she's worked with legislators on improving policy to benefit students with dyslexia and their education needs. She serves on the Higher Education Literacy Partnership in Minnesota. She works at Microsoft Education Division for assistive technology for students with dyslexia. And I got the privilege to have a very in-depth, long conversation with her, and we started talking about all of the technology and the systems that Microsoft has put in place to help our students who struggle with dyslexia. Well, and I will say not just our students, all of us that are struggling with dyslexia or learning disabilities. So I would love to welcome Rachel to our show. I'm so honored for you to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be here today. So let's talk a little bit. Let me give you a little backdrop on myself before I share with you some of the amazing assistive technology tools we were talking about recently. So I wear a couple of different hats, as you explained previously, but let's get a start with how did I become involved in advocating for dyslexia? So when my now 14-year-old was 5 years old, I, out of necessity, felt the need to join a movement called Decoding Dyslexia. And this was because as my 5-year-old was preparing to enter kindergarten, I learned that he couldn't identify his name when written or when it was anywhere like above his little cubby at preschool. He wasn't able to identify his name. He was also coming out of 2.5 years of an intensive preschool experience where he knew only 5 letters of the alphabet and really struggled with numbers as well. So I knew something was causing that. And as I sought out to find the answers, I learned that most people don't seek out a diagnosis for a child at the age of 5. In fact, a lot of people told me I was picking on my son and that he was just a boy and he would learn when he was ready. And as an individual who struggled myself with learning and watched my brothers struggle to a much greater degree and eventually drop out of school, I knew that there was a cause and I needed to find that answer so that I could provide my child a bridge to cross as he entered K-12, not a mountain to climb. And so when we got the diagnosis of dyslexia and dysgraphia, an auditory processing disorder, we then opened a world of resources. And so little did I know that at that time, my struggles would continue in terms of advocating for my child. I mean, I actually thought that bringing a diagnosis to the school would give them the golden key to helping my students succeed. And when I learned that that was almost the opposite, that our schools didn't say the word dyslexia at that time, instead of continuing the argument, I sought to join a movement and activate other parents because I knew that I wasn't the only one experiencing this. And so we set out to change those laws, and we did. And so that is one of the ways that I'm involved in dyslexia advocacy work. And one of the other ways is working in education and assistive technology at Microsoft. And so one of the things that I do is help educators and students learn about the assistive technology tools and also train them. And I think it's really important to note that we're not saying that these tools should take place of effective instruction, and they shouldn't take place of effective intervention, but these tools should be integrated into a child's learning and their day, and they should be utilized as a support to help level that playing field. And so again, these are some of the things that we do with Microsoft. And then also, I am a parent of 3 sons, and 2 of which have their share of learning disabilities. So when it comes to learning differently and struggling with a learning disability, we're in deep in this family. And that's just a little bit about me and how I became involved in this.
I love the fact that you say the assistive technology is to be used in conjunction with your explicit instruction in the classroom, your intervention that the child's going to be going through. It is a way that the child can participate in learning at the level that they have the cognitive abilities to learn it. So thank you so much for saying that. I mean, that helps so much.
Well, and it takes, as you'll notice when we get into talking about the tools, it takes an area of weakness that a child is experiencing. Let's say maybe that's reading at grade level, or maybe that's writing. And it takes that area of weakness and really makes it a strength, as you'll see with some of my demonstrations. And so no longer, you know, Stephen, I kind of think about you and I back in the day in school. And when I think about these tools, and I think no longer are students left out or excluded. We now have the ability to ensure accessibility and inclusion, ensure that our students are engaged in their learning community and in their curriculum with these types of tools, and when we integrate them.
Yeah, I when I was first getting into this, much like you, when I was starting to understand really what, even being dyslexic, I didn't understand what dyslexia was, even though I lived through it, until I found out that my two of my three boys, like you, have dyslexia. And then I wanted to understand exactly what it was and how to help them, that I started realizing that there are these other tools that we can use to help them participate while they're getting the intervention that they need. So
Yeah, it's amazing.
So
it's not such a bad time to be dyslexic.
yeah. So we're in a time right now where we have, you know, some kids are going to school, some kids are remote at home. What type of assistive technologies, devices, do students need in the classroom and or at home for homework?
You're asking about devices
Well,
or
assistive technology as a broad topic.
Sure. So, you know, what's working for both remote learning and in-class learning are really the same things. You know, all students are now having some level of a device and internet connectivity. And then when it comes to supporting our students who learn differently due to dyslexia or other learning disabilities, really what we're looking for is help accessing the curriculum. So that could be with a text-to-speech or a speech-to-text. So we got our reading supports. We have writing supports, which would enable the student to more effectively be able to create content. And also, we have students that struggle with mathematics and communication. So there now are support tools for both of those as well. And so there's a multitude of offerings out there. And what I like to say is it's our responsibility not to say, oh, well, you know, we have XYZ platform or device, and so this is what we're going to use. And so that's all we have. It's up to us as individuals that advocate and support our students to be able to expose them to different types of supports to ensure that they're able to access and utilize what works best for them.
I love that you say that, because I use that same message a lot when people ask, well, what type of accommodations do I need? My child has just been diagnosed with dyslexia. And then I always ask, well, what does your child need? What areas are they struggling in? It's really geared to what is going to help your child be successful. So that's where us as parents and advocates really have to take note and understand exactly what weaknesses are there and what we can do, what tools we can put in place, what accommodations we can put in place to make sure that our children can be as successful as they possibly can be in a general education classroom.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I think about too is doing that in a way that's non-stigmatizing. So, you know, we're kind of afforded that ability now with remote learning, where our students have the capability to use a plethora of different tools to personalize their learning experience and, you know, level the playing field, and nobody knows any differently. What I like to see is that we're able to carry that forward when we're learning in the classroom as well. And we're able to just normalize the use of things like text to speech or speech to text and just speech to text, and just say that, you know, hey, there are a multitude of ways to write a paper or to consume content. And so let's do what works best for you.
Well, let's dive into what Microsoft has been working on to help our children be successful. First thing, let's kind of dive through exactly what they put into their Office platform or their platform altogether. And I'll let you take it away. I know that you have a presentation that you want to present.
Yeah, I'd like to start out with a little bit of backdrop. I think it's important for our audience to understand why these tools are important and how they came to be. So let's maybe start with that first. And so back in 2014, Scholastic did a survey and they learned a lot about classrooms today. About 14,000 educators responded to that survey. And so the findings were that 3/4 of all classrooms, educators are reporting having students with reading levels that span 4 or more grade levels. And Stephen, I know that might not surprise you and I that those reading levels are all within that classroom, but that's a big range there to have within one gen ed setting. And then 3/4 of all classrooms have students who have special education needs. That can be a student on an IEP, a 504, or some unique level of need that requires accommodation. And then up to 50% of all of our classrooms have students who are non-native speakers. And so just given those 3 data points, you can see why up to 50% of instructional time can be lost managing those needs, including assistive technology. And so when Microsoft likes to think about assistive technology or inclusive tech, they keep in mind these 3 things. The first is students, and really students of all abilities, and wanting to ensure that they're able to access their curriculum and personalize their learning experience in a way that works best for them. And then with our educators, wanting to ensure that they're able to engage every single learner. And then from a school perspective, equity and inclusion are something that are top of mind for everyone, from our administration to educators, paras, parents, and even students. And so if we think about assistive technology, and I know this was something you touched on in the beginning before we started, really assistive technology is something that everyone uses and everyone benefits from. It helps people who have permanent disabilities, individuals with temporary impairments, or even situational requirements. And so this is something that, you know, with their newish CEO, Satya Nadella, Microsoft is really making a big push into inclusive technologies and ensuring that every single person on the planet has the ability to achieve more. And what I like about that is every single person. It's not the, 80% of us who are neurotypical learners, or 75% of the population. It's every single person. And so you're going to see that in some of the things I'm going to show you today, but you're also going to see that continue to grow and develop in all of the different technologies that they're working on. And so I think, again, that's really exciting. And so just want to show you this slide here, because this is literally the backdrop and the birthplace for some of the tools I'm going to share with you today. So Microsoft holds something called a global hackathon every year. And this is something where anyone in the company can work on any technology they like for a week out of every year. And so like in 2015, reading, font, accessibility, and education experts came together to look at the latest science, technology on dyslexia specifically. And they chose dyslexia because, as you and I have come to know and experience, dyslexia impacts the largest percentage of our population's ability to read printed word. And when individuals who struggle with this, whether they're diagnosed or not, aren't able to participate in reading at that level, there are a lot of odds that are stacked against them in being able to succeed in school and in the workplace. And so they came together to look at these different tools. They built a tool into OneNote as an add-in. They won the hackathon that year. And then they went on to work with educators and students to find out, well, how did these tools actually serve this population that we built it for? And they learned that not only did the tools help individuals who struggle with dyslexia, but also students who struggle with ADHD, non-native speakers, students with dysgraphia, and so many more beyond that initial intent. And so I'm going to go ahead and escape out of the PowerPoint that is sharing. And we're going to start out in OneNote where these tools are created. And Stephen, I'm relying upon you to ensure that my screen's appropriately displaying.
Yes,
so we should be
great.
in OneNote. All right, thanks. So right now we're in OneNote. And for those of you that might not be familiar, OneNote is a digital binder. So back in the day when Stephen and I were in school, we carried these huge trapper keepers where we kept all of our notebooks and all of our folders for all of our classes. And I think some of us got some back strain from all of the stuff we used to cram in there. Now, everything is digital and it can all be kept in one place with one thin little notebook. And so here we are in OneNote where these tools were created. I've got an example of a third grade story here. And this is actually a student that I work with in advocacy, and he was diagnosed with dyslexia in grade 3. And as you can imagine, there's a bit of gap between him and his peers. And so his educator is doing everything she can to ensure that he's got that access in the classroom to the same level of content his peers are reading. So here's what we do. Once we're in OneNote, we go to the Insert tab, and if you click on File, that's where it'll pull things from your personal computer. And in this case, what you're looking to do is pull, a little bit slow there, you're looking to pull in Word documents. Anything you've saved as a Word document or PDF can be inserted. And once you've done that, you can go ahead over here to the View tab, and we're going to click on Immersive Reader. And you'll see now that we have this skin that's popped over top of the page, and we can, with the click of a button down here, enable text to speech.
The Closet Creature by Kelly Ashway. Bump. Bump. Scratch.
So you'll hear that we have this lovely neural text to speech voice. We can go over here and change our voice speed or our voice selection. Believe it or not, some students have a preference on who's reading. In the case of my sons, they'll say, "Mom, the female sounds like you," and it's really annoying. So it's not my voice, but I get thrown under the bus all the time. You can also change the voice speed here, and that's really important when considering not everyone processes content at the same speed. In fact, some dyslexics can process really fast when they're picking up things auditorily, and some might need to slow down that speed. So that's just two of the features that are really amazing. But let's go over here to our text preferences. And here's where students have the ability to personalize how they're consuming this content. So we can kick up our text sizing. We can also increase that spacing, and the spacing just opens things up. We also have a choice of fonts. Comic Sans looks a little bit more handwritten, and that's been requested by our educators. And then here we can change our background colors. Now, this is really important because a small percentage of the population struggles with something called convergence insufficiency in addition to their dyslexia. We also have individuals who have eye strain or low vision, and so these background colors can greatly help. And really what's important here is that you don't have to prove a need to access these various different tools. It's simply there and afforded to everyone. So it could just be a personal preference. Under our grammar options, we can break words into syllables. So all the while the text is highlighting and reading aloud, we've got our words broken into syllables. And we can also highlight our parts of speech. So nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and then even show the labels above.
Nice.
Nice. I know. I could have used that for sure in lit class.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, it just was not going to sink in my mind what the remembering my parts of speech. I don't know if that's common for most dyslexics, but that was difficult for me.
By the time we got to the parts of speech, I was so done with school, it wouldn't have mattered what you did.
Right, right. No, I get it. So under our reading preferences, we can change the line focus mode here. So if you're wanting to reduce the amount of content you're seeing at one time, you can change it up there to personalize it. Individuals do have a preference, believe it or not. Some people don't want to see all of the text at one time.
And again, this, I mean, when I'm sitting here looking at this is, you were showing the what you can see as far as the lines go. I mean, we used, back when we were in school, the teacher would tell us to use a ruler, or they would, have a reading ruler, whatever you call it. And by using
something out of paper.
But with the children in intervention also, this is going to help them with their reading fluency. The faster that they get with their reading, the more intervention that they get, the more text that they can take in at one time. So I like that you can change that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. And there's plenty of uses for all of the different features. One of my next that I want to show you, this is my favorite. Picture Dictionary is done in conjunction with Boardmaker. And so if I click on a word, I get a photograph or a set of photographs that pops up and helps me create meaning or comprehend. And so think of, again, how useful this is for, students with dyslexia, students that are non-native speakers, or really just anyone. This is a really amazing tool to have right here. And then lastly, what we have is Translator. And so if you'll see this drop down over here, I can go in and click the language that I'd like to have my document translated in. In this case, just because Spanish tends to be popular, I'm going to go ahead and change it to Spanish. And instead of changing just a word, I'm going to change my entire document. Whoops. Okay, so now you'll see our document is in Spanish, and I can have that read aloud to me in Spanish.
The closest creature de que ella soy. Golpe. Golpe. Rasguño. Abraham abrió los ojos y levantó la...
Okay, so we've got this lovely accented voice. I can also use Picture Dictionary there in Spanish. Yeah, I don't read Spanish, so there we go. I scored. And then we hear the word in Spanish.
Abrió.
And you'll notice at the top, I can toggle between my original and the translated version with the click of a button. Okay. So this is, in a nutshell, Immersive Reader within OneNote. You have both the desktop version of OneNote and the online version of OneNote. And again, Immersive Reader. But I'm going to show you a couple other places you can access Immersive Reader, because again, while we're doing both in-class learning and remote learning, there's a multitude of needs when it comes to accessing, being able to read content in a multitude of places. So let's go ahead and check out.
Can I add one quick thing on OneNote? This is something that I learned that I thought was just amazing. In OneNote, you can copy your, and you talked about this briefly at the very beginning, you can copy and paste your PDF documents into OneNote. So any of the electronic PDFs that your teacher's giving you, you take that, copy it, paste it into OneNote, and then you can use all of these Immersive Reader functions within OneNote to be able to deal with that PDF.
Absolutely. Yep. So multitude of ways you can access that. So now we're in Edge browser. And so for those of you that aren't familiar with Edge, Edge is Microsoft's internet search engine. I'm using Edge browser Chromium version. And so if you can see the bottom of my screen, you can see I'm guilty as charged. I've got Google over here. But I'm going to show you why you want Edge to be your premium browser. So I've pulled up a website that's commonly used in education and also happens to be one of my favorites, Tween Tribune. This has a wealth of information for K-12 on a multitude of topics. So you'll see down here, we've got, all sorts of different topics educationally. And just pulled up an article because, again, assume I'm a student who's doing my schoolwork, but yet I'm starting to fatigue and I need a little assistance with my reading. So I can go up to the corner here and click on my friend Immersive Reader, and you'll just see it's right here. And once I do that, it's going to wipe out all of the ads and give me what's called a reading view. And again, we're in the mainstream internet, folks. This isn't, OneNote or Word. We're in internet and being able to click on Immersive Reader with an internet page. So now you'll see I have the ability to have my text read aloud. If I click on the read aloud.
Tootsie Rolls were World War II energy bars.
Okay, so we've got the highlighting, text to speech. Over here, I've got my voice options and my speed, just like we were looking at within OneNote. And this is my toolbar. So I could say, you know what, the text is a little bit small. I'm going to adjust that. Maybe you prefer to read with some text spacing in there. And so we can put some spacing in, change our background color. We've got our grammar tools. So we've got the syllables and parts of speech, and we've even got our reading preferences here. So we've got line focus mode, we've got picture dictionary, and we've even got translator. All of this built into a mainstream internet search and available to anyone using Edge browser Chromium. So there's a couple other places I want to show you before as we kind of move along here in the demonstration that I had prepared for you today. And so next I'd like to show you how Immersive Reader works in Word, especially because a lot of people are familiar with Word. So I'm going to click on my tab here. I've got Word Online pulled up. It works both in the online version and in the desktop version. So I've just got a sample document here. And you'll notice, again, under the View tab, just like when we were in OneNote, I find Immersive Reader, and I can click on that. And we have slow internet at the moment. Here we are. So now here we've got our Immersive Reader, text to speech.
The Amazon rainforest.
Okay, so we could change that speed. Looks like I have it a bit slow right now. So we've got all of these personal controls to be able to enable us to consume that content in the manner that works best for us. Everything's similar to OneNote and what we looked at in Edge browser. And now briefly, I just want to go into the PowerPoint deck and also show you one additional place that you can access Immersive Reader that I think is going to be really important for students, again, during our current situation, but even everyday life. So we're gonna take a look at Office Lens. Office Lens is something that you can get with an iPhone, an iPad, and an Android device. And so here's a quick video showing how. Let's go ahead and start that over. It's showing, we're going to show how Immersive Reader.
So just a second, you're taking a picture of text You're using your camera,
Yes.
taking a picture of the text, and then it's converting it and reading it to you.
Yep, it's running OCR and converting that text and utilizing Immersive Reader.
Wow.
Sarah Cynthia Sylvia Stout. Would not take the garbage out.
Okay, and so it's showing that we've got all the same features that were shown in OneNote, in Word, and in Edge browser. All of those things are available to you using Office Lens as well.
That's amazing. So let's you were gonna talk about Word and some of the things that we can do in Word. So can we take a look at that?
Let's go ahead and go to those. I'm going to start out with a slide, and yes, let's talk about Word. And I can provide for you as well, Stephen, some helpful links that I think is going to be helpful to your audience as they learn these tools.
Yeah, we've got some comments here that people were asking for links of instruction.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then we had another question: is this free, or are these tools free? And people are saying they love this. It's incredible. Giving thumbs up. This is a game changer for our students.
Absolutely, it is, and it's free like Google Docs free. So I'm going to start out. We're going to talk about Word, and then that'll wrap up the tools that I have time for today. And maybe later I can do an in-depth presentation for our audience if it's something that they would like. Again, I'll provide a bunch of links that'll be helpful for people that are new and learning how to utilize these things.
Yeah. So give us a thumbs up if you want us to do a deep dive into each of these areas each of these tools that Microsoft has developed for our students with learning disabilities. I would love to do a deep dive on it.
Yeah, and we could do a deep dive that'll cover reading, writing, math, and communication.
Absolutely.
So we could do something that'll cover all of those. But let's start out here with writing and show you a photograph. I don't know about you, Stephen, but this is a pretty common facial expression when it comes to writing in our household. And honestly, as a student, I felt the same way being asked to write for school. So pretty much without exception, students who struggle with dyslexia, and even adults who struggle with it, dislike writing to a high degree. And I'm going to next show you an example of my son's work. And so my son is now in high school. So this was a while ago. And on the left, you'll see a handwritten example. And so this is painful for us as parents and individuals who also struggle. We know what this is like. The manual task of writing is so difficult that you'll see as time goes on, the content doesn't necessarily get any better. The example on the left took 50 minutes, 50, of his class time, and really isn't indicative of the subject matter mastery or the knowledge that my son has to share. So I gave him the tools built into Word, including dictation, and on the right here, he was able to very articulately express what he wanted to in terms of the story he was asked to write. And he did it in a, obviously it's legible, but sequential manner, full of great richness of content, text, and it only took him 12 minutes.
Wow.
12, including editing. So let's go ahead and go to Word, and let me just show you how that was possible. We're coming up on our time here. If you'll let me know how much we've got, Stephen, that'll help me greatly.
We got about 10 minutes.
For this part, or
in total?
Okay, perfect. So we're looking at Word right now, and you'll notice that this is just a sample document. So what my son was able to do is, under our Home tab, all the way over to the right, we've got dictation. And so when you click on the little tiny arrow, you set up the language that you're dictating in, and then you can go ahead and click dictation. Let me actually set up where I want to start dictating. There we go. Now we are dictating with Word, period. This is something I use on a daily basis so I can speak to its effectiveness. Absolutely love it. Period. Okay, so you can see how quickly and effectively dictation picked up what I was saying. And so it was utilizing dictation, and then also under our review tab, toggling between dictation and the read aloud, because oftentimes we need to have our content read back in order to be able to, did it make sense? Do I need to add any more detail? And so it was toggling between those two things that greatly helped my son initially. Then we also have editor. And so you'll see editor is under the home tab here, all the way over to the right. And so if I click on editor, what happens is I get an editor pane that pops up. And firstly, I've got spelling. It can help me with my spelling. Notice I've got a lot here. And you know, if you're someone who struggles with dyslexia and you get a drop-down list of potential spellings of that word, it doesn't really help to just have that. It's really hard to disambiguate between which version of that word did you intend. And so here you'll see with our improved spell checker, we've got that bit of context for individuals to be able to determine which version of that word did they mean. And if you click on this arrow over here, you'll see that we can have this read aloud. So if you're fatiguing at that point, you can utilize the read aloud. And so what editor will do, if I arrow back out here, you'll see it'll walk through the entire document, picking up any of these grammar and spelling issues and enabling the individual to more independently be able to create content without someone watching over their shoulder, telling them everything they've got to do.
I love it.
And so that's just, again, just a little bit about the editor tool and the dictation built into Word.
Well, we definitely need to do a deep dive. You would not believe the amount of thumbs ups that we got for deep dive and people asking for it. So we definitely want to do that. I want to jump real quick before our time is up. You are promoting a dyslexia awareness campaign in October. October's Dyslexia Awareness Month. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about that real quick.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I worked on this summer with Microsoft was a Dyslexia Awareness Month virtual workshop for parents, educators, advocates, or anyone really interested in learning more about dyslexia. And so this kicks off on Thursday, October 8th. And so this is a 3-week series every Thursday evening in which we have a lineup of wonderful speakers who will be talking about dyslexia and helping us to learn more about dyslexia. So we've got speakers like Dr. Sally Shaywitz, Emily Hanford, Hildebrand Pelzer. We'll also hear from experts in the field from Decoding Dyslexia and the IDA, the International Dyslexia Association, and Microsoft product managers that helped create the tools that assist students. Oh, we've also got Kate Griggs as well. She's heading up day 3 entirely.
Awesome. I think she's actually watching us live. I saw her name pop up here.
Right, and she's got some really exciting stuff she's going to be sharing with us on day 3. So really important to have people join us.
So that starts October 8th? You said October 8th?
Yes, starting October 8th. It'll run Thursdays in October.
So how does the audience, how are they able to view this? How do they sign up for it?
So I'm going to share the links with you so that they can sign up. Again, this is a free event for anybody. And I'll share the links with you so that they can register for each night.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We never seem to have enough time to cover, the massive amounts of topics that we have around supporting our children with learning disabilities. I ask that you come back. We would love to do a deep dive on all of the tools that Microsoft has developed for our children with learning disabilities, or all of us. So if you'll please do that, our audience would love that. And excuse me.
I'd be more than happy to do that. You're right. We'll be able to we weren't able to share nearly as much as there is to offer. And so your audience members can also attend, again, that event, Dyslexia Decoded, and get a little bit of a head start. But I'll come back and do a deep dive on all of the tools.
Awesome. So we're running up on the very end of our show, and I want to make sure that we always like to recommend that if you think that your child is struggling, and there's a possibility that they may have a learning disability, do not wait. Get them tested as soon as possible. Knowing is half the battle. I can't stress this enough. If you get them tested and you understand the struggles or the learning disabilities that they may possibly have, the stress level on you and your child comes down. So the process is fairly simple. We have templates on our website, www.empowerdyslexia.info. You can download the template for testing, fill it out, turn it into your school counselor, and that gets the process started. This is so important to understand exactly what we're dealing with, so we can make sure that we get the appropriate remediation, accommodations, assistive technology put in place so your child can be successful in school, just like you and them know that they can be. Thank you so much for all of the support. It's such an honor to do this show every week and find the guests and have them here and bring this information forward. I know that there's so many parents out there that just don't even know what to do or where to turn. And we're going to keep pushing forward every week until everybody hears this message and everybody gets the support that they need. So until next time, we'll see you then. And here's a word from our sponsors.
Learning Ally is a proud sponsor of the Empowered Dyslexia podcast. At Learning Ally, we are always looking for new ways to engage readers struggling with a reading deficit like dyslexia and help them work to their potential. Visit www.learningally.org to learn about the Learning Ally audiobook solution, including which of your students are eligible for access. If you live in Texas, we have great news. The Texas Education Agency provides access to the Learning Ally audiobook solution for all K-12 public and charter school students with reading deficits. Get started today by visiting www.learningally.org/Texas.